What's up, real MVPs? Ricky Widmer here, and welcome into another edition of MVP Sports Live right here on our YouTube page. You're either watching us live right now on YouTube, howdy ho neighborinos, or you're watching us after the fact, howdy ho neighborinos to you too. Today we got a jam-packed show. We're talking NBA playoffs. We got two series that both got tied up last night. The Clippers tied up their series. The Hawks tied up their series. We got game sixes abound. We're going to have another game tonight that it doesn't matter who wins because it's going to go six regardless. And the Suns are right there licking their chops like, ha, ha, ha. We're the only ones that do not have to go to a game six. I am Ricky Widmer, and I am joined, as I always am, with my beautiful co-host, Saopy Muffin.
Hey!
Saopy, how you digging the little bit of like a voice change I did there? Saopy Muffin?
I mean, it almost kind of sounds like a little bit of like a horror movie at the beginning, kind of.
Does it? That's not what I was going for. I was just going for being silly.
I mean, to be fair, it's supposed to be silly.
Yeah.
That's a murder clown, so.
Good point.
If you guys hear weird sounds in the background.
Soapy he is putting together a webcam stand because the shit came in, and sooner or later you guys will get to see Soapy on camera. And he's telling me all the struggles he's going through putting together
this
stand.
essentially literally shows me that I'm a technical boomer, and that if you tell me to make IKEA furniture for you, that shit's not going to come out right.
Yeah. I'm sitting here going, oh, don't worry, bro. You got it. Like, you got it. You got this. And you're like, I don't think I got this, Ricky. I don't think I have.
I'm sitting here telling Ricky, I'm like, Ricky, is it supposed to fucking swivel like that? He's like, no, it's not supposed to swivel.
No, it's probably not supposed to swivel. It's supposed to stay there. But we got a jam-packed show. We're talking NBA playoffs. We're also talking NBA rule changes because they're exploring rules to the jump shot that everyone hates. So we're going to talk about the rules change that the NBA might be going forward with. And then we're going to end the show with the namesake. We are going to preview the NBA Draft Combine for 2021. We got the list of who's going to be there, who needs to have a big showing, who needs to have their stock rise, and who could see their stock fall from a poor combine. But before we get into everything, though, make sure we'll do the housekeeping. Make sure to join the Discord down below. For all you NBA fans, I'm just going to go ahead and show you guys. We have numerous chats here on the side, if I can take the overlay away. And, oh, look at this. Just a nice little NBA chat here. Look at this. All the nice NBA chats going on. So if you want to join that, obviously, hit up that link in the description. It is the greatest community in the universe. If you want to support us, you can do in one of two ways. You can either check out patreon.com/MVPvids, link down below, or you can hit the join button and become a channel member. Right now, gold members, we got bronze, silver, gold, and platinum, but gold and platinum members, they get to see now two things a week early, Soapy. They get to see your mock draft that has been up. It is up for patrons and channel members. They can go ahead and see that right now. And then tonight, my scouting video for Ayo Dosunmu will be dropping there, so you can go ahead and see both of those a week before everyone else. Well, for Soapy's until Friday. For mine, it's a full week because today's the first day it'll be dropping, so go ahead and check those out to get that. Also, thank you to our Patreon sponsor, Pat Hill, for the platinum level. And then last but not least, hit that sub button, hit that like button, hit that notification button. Let us know in the comments down below. And if you're watching us live right now, let us know what you're thinking in chat. Like Sap says, insert IKEA having 5 extra parts joke. Bit of a hot take. I think Kuminga will be a top 3 player in the draft. So let us know what you guys think in there. We'll be kind of interacting with you guys all throughout the show. That is kind of a hot take because a lot of people are a little bit low on Kuminga. I know Soapy and I. Soapy, you're not low on Kuminga, right? You and I are on the Kuminga hype train.
I'm on the. I don't have him as like a top 5 prospect. I think he goes top 5 though.
Okay. Yeah. Me and you are on the same track then because I know Jake and Dave hate Kuminga with a passion, it seems, and don't think he is going to be a good prospect in the draft. But let's go ahead and hit the playoff games first. And the first one we got to talk about, Jake is not here to comment on this game, and it is probably a good thing. As the Hawks tie the series at 2-2, they take game 4. They went up 1-0, then they went down 2-1. Now they tie it, and it is now a 3-game series, being 2 games potentially at the center in Philly, and then 1 more for sure going to be played in Atlanta. Saopy, what is your thoughts from this? Because to me, this was a game that it looked like, early on, it looked like the Sixers were in control. First half, I was looking going, okay, this is going to be a win for the 76ers. Then the second half happens, and it's kind of like, okay, it's close, but the Sixers can still win this. And then this is an example for me of the Hawks stealing one at the end. Not a slight at the Hawks. That's not what I mean by this. But this was a pure, the Hawks stole this game. And now for me, it's going to be interesting to see how the Sixers come out in Game 5 after losing this one.
Yeah, and obviously, I think one of the major things with this as well, I honestly don't even view this as this is a game the Hawks lost. I think this was a game that the Hawks won. I think this was a game the 76ers lost.
Yep.
Of where I think it was they made too many mistakes down the stretch. Where obviously for a while they just kept running their offense through Furkan. Of where it's like, don't get me wrong, as much as we love the Furkan nightmare himself, there isn't no point in an NBA game on any team that even has championship aspirations that you should run offense through Furkan for 2 minutes.
Yeah, and I mean, Furkan went 4 of 9 from the field, 2 of 5 from 3, finished with 10 points. This is also if Jake was on the show, I would ask him of like, where's your worry level right now with Danny Green being out for the next couple of weeks? Because Furkan obviously starting in replacement for the injured Danny Green, and I don't want to say that, oh, Danny Green's the reason why they lost this game, not having him out there. I think that this was one where the Hawks just played better in the second half. This was one where, if you look at it, the first half was dominated by the Sixers. They outscored the Hawks by 8 in the first quarter. They outscored them by another 5 points in the second quarter, and then the big punch in the mouth, or as Pat McAfee would say, the punch in the mouth, would be that third quarter. The third quarter swung everything, where the Hawks came out like gangbusters. 31-20, an 11-point swing in favor of the Hawks, kind of putting the game in this close situation. Then at that point, like, it was one of those where the Sixers were kind of like on their heels, towards like, okay, we might be able to do enough to survive this game, but that didn't happen. The Hawks didn't let up off the pedal. They scored another 23 in the fourth compared to the 18 that the Sixers had. And like, I don't want to say that, oh, the Sixers took the Hawks for granted in the second half. I just think that this Hawks team came out with a different mentality in the second half that the Sixers, A, were not ready for, and B, because of Danny Green being injured, not being out there, kind of hurt them a little bit, to where it was like, okay, they could weather the storm in the first half because there was no storm. They could not weather the storm in the second half.
Yeah, and I think just as well on top of that the 76ers lost, and with me pointing this out, and I'm not saying it's any at all this player's fault, Embiid shot really bad in this game.
Yeah.
Like, looking at stats, like, oh, it looked like Embiid did super good, like 17 points, 21 rebounds. Yeah, 4 of 20 from the field, to where 8 of his points came from free throws, of where it's almost at the point of okay, and I'm not trying to say people need to step up, because obviously I know Jake was not very happy in the NBA chat today, but people insinuated Ben and Tobias need to step up. I think it's just more of and I'm kind of looking at it, and obviously, once again, I didn't watch the game super extensively. Like, I'm not saying, I didn't watch it all. I watched, in and out. It almost kind of looks like at times, the bench seemed to almost be the problem at times.
Bingo.
Of where it's it feels like at times they're having trouble choosing between Shake Milton and Tyrese Maxey, because it almost feels like they fill the same exact role. It's just one's hot and the other one's cold. Where, you see minutes of where it's Maxey gets 7, and obviously in 7 minutes you're not going to do too much. Like, he was a +7 on the court. You know, Shake Milton played 15, but he was on the court. He shot rather poorly from the field.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and only had 8. You know, obviously, minutes play into that. But, like, it just kind of looks like off the bench of where it's like, okay, this team is very reliant on their starters, which, is kind of a given.
Yeah.
Like, every team needs to be really reliant on their starters, but it almost feels like at times they're reluctant to pull out people on the bench. Like, Thibault shot really bad this game. Obviously, like I already said, Shake shot pretty bad. George Hill didn't have the best game ever. Like, obviously, he did, like, little things. But, not super crazy. I think Dwight played fine. Like, it's a Dwight Howard game. Can't really expect too much.
I mean, but, like, the thing in the end of it, too, is, like, I don't want to go on the side of, like, oh, like, for example, people saying Toby needs to step up. If you look, yet again, a lot of people are going to say you can't just look at the box score, but, like, if you look at his points, he had a round where he's averaging. So it's like, okay, you got what you expect. If you're solely going to be a box score watcher, and this is me, if you're going to be a box score watcher, is the thing that jumps out to me is Joel Embiid, but that's not me saying Embiid needs to step up. I would kind of go into it of like, Embiid had a bad night in terms of his shooting. Yeah, he had 21 rebounds, but 4 of 20, you rarely see that from Joel Embiid. The Hawks played really good in the second half. That's why you got to give credit for them for coming back in this game and not just rolling over like a dead dog and going down 3-1 in the series. But if you're going to be a box score watcher, the thing you look at is you go, you can't win. Like, you're not going to be able to win the game. And yet again, I think Jake can agree with me here. You're not going to win a game when Joel Embiid only has 17 points. Like, if Embiid only has 17 points and Toby has 20 and Ben has 11, odds are the Sixers are not winning that game. Like, if Ben's going to have 11 and Toby's going to have 20, you're going to need Joel Embiid to take on the shoulder of the scoring and say, hey, we need a 30-point game out of you. And, like, that's the thing that many people want to say is wrong with the Sixers. Not saying I agree or disagree, but, like, the one point that's brought up is they don't have that guy with the killer mentality. Like, Ben's not the scorer. He's a good offensive player and a great defensive player. Toby can give you 20 points a night in his role with the team. Joel Embiid can score, but he's not a guy that's going to hunt the basket. Like, I'm not saying I disagree or agree with that. I'm just saying, like, that's what some will say about the Sixers. I think more credit needs to be given to the Hawks. They went out and they won this game. Now, the thing I will say, Saopy, is I know this may be like the duh thing, but if I'm the Hawks and if I'm a Hawk fan, Game 5 is a must win. It is a must win for the Hawks because if the Sixers win, I agree with Sap, I could see this going 7, but in my mind, if the Sixers, like, in my mind, it either goes 6 or 7, but it's either Sixers and 6 or Hawks and 7. The only way I see it going 7 games is if the Hawks are the victor. Because how I feel like things will play out is if the Hawks win Game 5, Sixers win Game 6, then the Hawks win on the road. But if I'm the Hawks, I have to win. Have to win Game 5 because you want to put the pressure on the Sixers to be like, okay, we have to win a do-or-die game in Atlanta in order to bring it back home. And really then the odds are obviously on your side because 2 elimination games, the Sixers would have to beat you twice in a row, which I know they did, so it's not impossible. But, like, I see the Sixers coming out playing better at home in Game 5. I see the series ending in a good Game 6. I don't know what you think for the rest of the series.
I think this one could go 7, and especially because the fact I think if the Hawks go up 3-2, I honestly would probably say at that point, if I'm the Hawks, I feel comfortable I can beat them in 6. And obviously, I'm not trying to just be like the reactionary fan. Obviously, my Jazz take is kind of aged like fucking milk. But with this team, I think it's right now the Hawks need to attack the fact that Embiid's not 100%. They need to attack the fact of like, okay, If Embiid's going to shoot 4 of 20, and he's not going to have like as good of nights as we know he can have, we need to attack him. We need to be like, you know what? We're going to have Embiid beat us. We're going to have a guy with a torn meniscus in his knee try to beat us. Because if I'm the Hawks, it's like, all right, Trae Young, even though he hasn't been shooting the greatest of games, obviously he had the second place runner-up to Defensive Player of the Year on him for most of the game. And as well just with the fact that the Sixers have 3 people on the All-NBA defensive team. So that's a fucking terrifying thing to run into if you're a scorer. But it's the fact of, like, Simmons, like, essentially they just need to be like, all right, fuck it. Trae Young's playmaking will get us past Embiid. And that's really what... Obviously, Trae Young had a very solid game. Obviously, once again, not shooting the best of the field. Obviously, 8 of 26 from the field. Not the greatest of games.
Yeah.
But as well, like, even when he's not scoring, like, obviously he still scored a lot. He scored 25. But, like, even outside of that, 18 assists.
Yeah.
Of where literally he's like, oh, hey, you guys are lacking on John Collins? Lob. Oh, hey, Clint Capella's in the paint? Lob.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, look at that. Bogdan's on the 3. Here you go.
Yeah, he finished with, what, 15, like, I think you said 15 assists in that game?
18.
18.
Yeah, so Trae Young finished with 25 points and 18 rebounds.
Yeah.
Or not rebounds.
Assists.
If Trae Young had 18 rebounds, that'd be fucking phenomenal.
That'd be amazing. Shortest man on the court getting 18 rebounds. Oh,
I mean,
man.
hey, real hustle player. But yeah, I mean, it's even like Jake brought up in the Discord as well. Like, later in the game, like, it's just hustle plays they lost to. Over, like, the Hawks are going for rebounds more. But, like, obviously, you know, Embiid and Howard got a lot of rebounds. But once again, you're running into a team that, like, this whole team is hustle. This whole team is, we're going to fucking run our asses off. We're going to every loose ball possible. Of where it's, like, just looking at the teams overall, of where, like, you would see in moments like when George Hill's in the game, George Hill isn't running to a fucking rebound. You see, like you would see, like, Bogdanovich running to a rebound, Gallinari running to a rebound, because it's all he can do in playoff games.
Yeah. I mean...
Or I will slander Gallinari every chance I get in a playoff game.
This series got a whole hell of a lot more interesting. Also, Saopy, live update here on the show. We have a game that is going to tip off in about 45 minutes. A Woj bomb has been dropped, Saopy. James Harden will play in Game 5. Nets or Bucks getting the win tonight?
I'm saying Nets.
The Nets are winning the series now. It's big. No longer Bucks and six.
Hey,
It's
their
Nets
best
and
players
6.
back.
I am so happy for this, by the way, because I need this to go 7. I need the Nets and the Bucks to go 7 games so that I can cash in on something. But the other series that also tied up last night, the LA Clippers, Kawhi and Paul George said, all right, we're down 0-2. Time to now play like superstars. By God, was this a dominating game by the Clippers, to where I have a feeling that I know this series goes back to Utah and Utah plays well at home, but I almost think the Clippers have the Jazz on the ropes, where I do not think this is going to be like Mavs Clippers, where it's like, oh, you know what? The first team won 2 games and the next team won 2 games. I don't think this is one where, oh, the home team wins every game like it's been so far. I think the Clippers have awoken, Soapy, to where if Kawhi and Paul George are playing like they did, especially in Game 4, Clippers are going to win in 6 and just win the next 2 games.
I don't know if I'm going to say it like that. I think this
I'm just saying, if
definitely
Kawhi and Paul
awoken.
George are putting up 30-plus each, it's going to be really hard for the Jazz to do it when Mike Conley's not out there, and guys like Jordan Clarkson did not have a great game for him, only giving him 8 points. Like, that's the thing with the Jazz. They need everything to hit. Mitchell had his points at 37. The rest of the Jazz didn't have bad games, but there were just some where it's like, Clarkson's been giving you at least 18 a game. If he only gives you 8, it's going to be hard to beat the Clippers.
But it's also look at their fouls. Almost every one of the starters for the Jazz were in foul trouble. Where the point of where, like, later in the game, they had to rely so much more on their bench than they probably wanted to. Obviously, Clarkson's the main one you want to go to off your bench. He's easily your best bench player. Like, okay, we want to rely on him. But it's the fact of like, okay, we want to play him in spurts, and obviously he wasn't having too good of a game, so they probably were like, okay, let's rely on Mitchell more. But then no, Mitchell's got a bunch of fouls. Where they're like, well, okay, shit, who do we go to now?
Yeah.
Where it started getting to the point of where the Clippers were like, all right, cool, we're just getting in foul trouble early. We figured out how to beat them. Like the fact that you had a bench player play more minutes. Like, and obviously, don't get me wrong, you're going to find a way for Donovan Mitchell to still play an absolute shit ton, even if he's in foul trouble.
Yeah.
Jordan Clarkson played 10 less minutes than Donovan Mitchell, and Donovan Mitchell played 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that you have a bench player playing almost more than your entire starting lineup, that's bad.
Yeah, well...
Actually, no good.
The thing that I'll ask you is you say, like, oh, they got in foul trouble, like... Who's to say? I know the Jazz are going to make adjustments to where that doesn't happen or try to make adjustments to where it doesn't happen. But from the Clipper standpoint, what's it to them to where they go, hey, well, we did in game 4. We got to do again. Kawhi, the way Kawhi was attacking the basket, it was like, that's what we got to do. We have to attack the basket with that ferocity because that's how we're going to, that's how we're going to win this game. We have to get this other team in foul trouble because if we don't, then they're just going to be like, that's the thing. When you're in foul trouble, there's so much you have to think about to where it's like, it almost throws you off a little bit to where, if they're like the Jazz aren't in foul trouble, like, oh, okay, it's loosey-goosey. We're knocking down shots because we're feeling it. Like, that's how the Jazz win. They win with their long range. And, yeah, they went 17 of 42. Yeah, they made 2 more threes than the Clippers did. But you look at percentage-wise, like, 40% for the Jazz, I would say off the top of my head that is below their season average, I would say.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and just, I kind of look at it with foul calls of where it's like, those can fucking change on a dime.
Yeah. Also, it depends on who's officiating because refs are not consistent.
To where the point of, for instance, what the Clippers were getting away with in Game 4, they may not get away with in Game 5.
Good point.
Refs may call more fouls on the Clippers for something. Like, that's always why whenever there's foul trouble, of where I just kind of look at it, and I really don't like blaming refs 90% of the time. Mm-hmm. I know I have blamed refs before. But I just kind of look at it of like officiating in this game, like they were really strict on the Jazz. Like the Jazz, like I don't want to say couldn't play defense at times because I'm not trying to make it sound like it's rigged.
Yeah. Also, I do want to say I stand corrected. Jazz on the season averaged 38 as a team from 3%, and they're averaging 40% from 3 this postseason. So that 40% is right on what their average. I stand corrected.
Yeah, and it's just kind of where I just look at this series and I just think to myself where it's like, okay, cool. We're seeing a situation where like foul trouble really hurt this team in this one. I want to see what happens in Game 5. I think Utah goes up 3-2.
Okay.
And I think at that point that forces it to where it's like, okay. And as well, and I'm not trying to be that guy. I don't hate Paul George. I don't know if you get continuous 30-point games out of Paul George. He is the main question mark I have. Of where, like, and I'm not even trying to be like, oh, Pandemic P. I'm not trying to do that. I've never liked the Pandemic P thing, also because I just throw that at Porzingis now. For shits and giggles. But I just kind of look at it that I'm like, okay, are we going to get another 30-point game out of Paul George? There's a chance, but there's also a chance he shoots like 1 of 15 again. And as well, if, I think it was, in the first game the Clippers won, Reggie Jackson scored like 20-plus points or something like that.
He was averaging about 5 threes and 20 points a game before this one.
Yeah. To where it's like, are you really going to get that out of him the whole series? Like, I'm not even trying to be a Reggie hater right now. I'm speaking realistic.
Oh, I was so upset. All I needed from him last night, Saopy, was not 5 threes, just 3 threes. Just 3. Like... I can't even fathom. That's why I'm looking at my ceiling. I needed to rant a little bit on that one because that's all I needed to win some money.
It was a little off because he didn't hit a single one.
Yeah, I know. He had a poor game box score wise, but he was fitting a role. And also when Kawhi and PG are doing what they're doing, it's almost like you sit back and go, all right, Reggie doesn't need to be on tonight because Kawhi's taking it into his own hands. And like, that's the thing. what Clippers team do. I think that's the question. What Clippers team do we see in Game 5? Do we see a Clippers team that we saw in Game 1 and Game 2, or do we see the Clippers team we saw in Game 4? Because if we see that Clippers, series is over, but only if we see the Clippers from Game 4.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think we're not going to see the Jazz on an off night every night. We're not going to see the Clippers on absolute fire every night. Like, that's the thing. I think that's why I think the Jazz take Game 5. I think the Clippers then can take Game 6 and then it just goes to 7. And then literally the last one is just hope to God Paul George is on fire and hope to God Donovan Mitchell's got like an 80-point game in him.
Yep, absolutely agree. But we're going to change into one of the stories that we're looking at for today, and that is some rules changes, potentially, by the NBA. Also want to bring in some YouTube chat that I was ignoring. Joshua said earlier, what's good, everyone? Hope everyone's doing good. Doing great. Hope you guys are doing good as well. We're talking rules changes because Saopy, this article coming from Woj himself, says the NBA's competition committee met Monday to further explore rule changes to restrict unnatural motions surrounding jump shots that players are using to draw fouls. The league wants to limit the ability of players, including crafty stars like James Harden, Luka Doncic, and Trae Young, to lean backwards and sideways, for example, to initiate contact and to get to the free throw line. The NBA has shared a video compilation of player examples with the 30 teams that outlines a number of motions deemed unnatural that were used to draw fouls. The NBA and the competition committee will drill down the specific plays with the league's GMs next week to target examples that will be recommended for owners to vote to eliminate next season, sources say. The growing belief is that many of the maneuvers are contributing to a game where the advantage is slanting too much towards the offense, while the concentration of these issues is often focused on star players getting much more usage and exposure with the ball. The league sees this as a universal problem throughout lineups and rosters, not only as an issue with star players. Soapy, I think this is unanimous across the board what we're going to think. This needs to be a rule against these unnatural motions, correct?
Oh yeah, I think this is something that needs to happen, and it's because of the fact we see it way too often, and it slows down the game so much. Because, like, for instance, and this kind of just goes into a little bit of my question, but I'll pose it once I kind of get done with my own little thing.
Yeah.
Of where, like, we see, like, players where, they shoot, and you just look at them like, what the fuck is going on there? Like, you look like you got shot with, like, a fucking stun gun or something.
Yeah.
As they flail around. And this kind of then poses my question of, is this going to affect post players like Embiid? As much as some people may not like it, Embiid also foul baits, if you want to throw it around as the word foul baiting.
Well, I think the other thing that needs to be thrown in here is, like, I know that it might go away from unnatural, is I absolutely hate how it'll be like, you'll pump fake, and then the defender will jump, and then it's like, I'm just going to bump into you and, like, flail my arms like this to where it doesn't even look like a shot. It just looks like I threw my body into you and just tried to throw the ball up into the air.
Yeah, I think that does count as unnatural movement.
I think that should, like, those are the ones that piss me off the most, because it's like, and yet again, I don't want to get into, like, what used to be, what didn't used to be, because I'm sure that players in the 90s even did a little bit of this as well. But, like,
I was going to say, Reggie Miller built the whole fucking career off of it.
But, like, I'm saying, where there was, me as a kid, I remember a lot more of, like, okay, you get the pump, like, you do the pump fake to get them jumping so that you could dribble around them. Now, I know that it's not this NBA. The NBA now is not about driving to the basket. It's about ball movement and getting as many threes as you can, because we're all predicated on the three ball. The mid-range jumper, unless you're CP3 against the Nuggets.
Or DeMar.
Or DeMar, but I'm saying CP3 sweeping the Nuggets on the mid-ranger alone. Really everything is about the three ball nowadays. The one thing that I think this rule should be is basically you go up with a normal jump shot and it's a foul if the defender knocks into you, then it's a foul. But if you have to move anything out of the way, whether that's kick a leg forward, kick a leg back, move over to the side, if you have to do any of that to initiate contact, it should be easy. Oh no, that's something that we need to change there, because it's just ridiculous to where I feel like the league should want to limit trips to the foul line whenever they can, because the thing that it does is going to the line slows down the game, especially if it's a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Well, yeah, because Giannis adds a whole fucking extra hour to the game.
Dude, if he goes to the line enough, it's like, oh man, I'm going to go get a fucking thing of nachos. But
at that point, it's like, all right, Giannis is at the fucking free throw line. He's only shooting one. I'm going to run to the fucking bathroom real quick.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like when you have the WWE pay-per-view, and it's like, okay, this is the bathroom match where I'm going to go use the John. But I mean, the thing that I think is, if the league can limit trips to the foul line and make the game more I don't want to even say more fast-paced, just make it more entertaining, because what's entertaining? Actually playing basketball or watching a player shoot or miss at the foul line.
Yeah, it's a lot more fun, especially when the game's more high-paced, because the fact of, that's what a lot of people like watching in basketball. People love watching a fast break. They love watching, just essentially just offense. Obviously, defense isn't as fun to watch for some people. But you run into situations of where, you're seeing guys, I'll just use Trae Young as an example, of where, Trae Young will run forward, the guy will be behind him, the guy doesn't even jump, Trae Young just literally throws his legs back and kicks his back out, and it's okay. We have never seen you shoot a jump shot like that, my guy. You're doing that on fucking purpose.
I completely agree.
That's where it comes from, and as well, the reason why I'm asking, is that going to affect post players? Because, I just threw Embiid out there because he's the main one I could think of. But, Embiid kind of just does that stuff in the post over, if he goes for a turnaround jumper or something, he'll flail his arms out when he gets hit.
Yeah.
Essentially, a lot of people do it when they're driving to the basket. It's the same thing with, when people yell out when they drive to the basket.
Oh! One of those.
Yeah,
yours sounded a lot better than mine.
Yeah, when you hear people do that when they're driving to the basket, that's the reason they're doing it. They're trying to draw attention to it so ref can be like, oh, wait, hold up, I heard a noise.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I didn't know the refs are the thing from the fucking A Quiet Place, where they can only react to sound.
I mean, this is something that should be changed, and if it's not, it's just going to be sad. Do you think that this gets voted through or doesn't get voted through by the GMs? I think it does, because there's going to be more GMs that are upset because they've got burned by calls like this, or their team has gotten burned by calls like this.
I think it's going to get passed, because I think the only teams that are going to try to get it to where it doesn't work like that are
Brooklyn,
teams that benefit
Atlanta,
from
and
it.
Dallas.
Yeah, those three teams are definitely going to fucking be the ones that want it.
Yeah, basically,
they're going to be
how crafty of a superstar, and I love how they use the word crafty.
Even at that, we could probably see Portland not want it, because we have seen Dame do it a couple times. He doesn't do it very often. I'm not slandering Dame.
Yeah.
There are times where, you'll see Dame shoot and, his legs flail the fuck around, and it's are you trying to be a fucking helicopter?
No slander on Dame time here. No slander on Dame time.
I'm just saying, dude, I'll slander him when he can get out of the first round.
I'll ask you this. Are there any other rules that you think the NBA needs to take a look at?
I think they just need to take a look at. I'm not trying to say this is an asshole-ish way to refs, but I think they need to take a look at reffing in general.
Okay.
Because a lot of the contact rules they have in the NBA are so weird, because they're oh, well, you can't do this. It's okay, but it happens all the time and no one calls it. Or I almost feel like they just need to within the refs kind of go over with them of okay, no, this is contact. This is what we call. Don't call that. That's not contact. Obviously, there's human error. I'm not going to act like refs are these perfect machines that that notice everything. But there are times of where, sorry if you hear it popping, my dumb ass is playing with bubble wrap.
I will say, two of the things I think about go over, officiating is a big thing. Just consistency. Because you mentioned consistency, to where it's I can't stand how, like, oh, for some crews, it's the same thing in baseball, where it's like a strike for this person should be a strike for that person because it's a legit, like, defined strike zone. Whereas some guys have an expanded strike zone, some have a really small strike zone. I feel like it's the same way for the NBA, where some guys are a little bit more lenient, might not give you that foul call, where other guys are so butt tight to where it's like boop, 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 boop. I'm blowing the whistle every time, giving a partner a like backhanded fucking hand job with the way I'm throwing my hand up so much for these fouls. And like I can see where that has to be like changed in officiating, but like most of mine go through like the challenge process. I think needs to be looked at to where I agree with Jake. Jake has been a big proponent of this. I feel the NBA needs to change the challenge rule to if I challenge a call and get it wrong, I lose my challenge. But if I challenge it and get it right, I keep my challenge basically. Now they could do this. They could do the same thing the NFL does, where you get two challenges. You only get the second one if the first one is correct. Same thing though. Under 2 minutes, that goes to the refs in the replay booth. I feel like that needs to be looked at because I feel like there's an abundance of calls where coaches are not really keen on it. It's like, I'm not going to challenge that because what if there's something down the line that needs to be challenged and I don't have my challenge? Well, if you have the thing where it's like, hey, if you get it right, you get to keep your challenge. Okay, fine. We're going to see a challenge. We'll see maybe some more right calls or wrong calls be changed the opposite way. I think the other thing that would behoove the NBA to kind of take a look at and kind of like to speed up games later on is kind of I look to soccer or football, what they do with VAR, and kind of do something like that where let's say you've got a crew for every game, or like what I think the NHL did where you have like a New York office that basically is a headquarters of all the games, and you have them just calling into that one desk that is assigned to that game, where instead of the refs just sitting there like, okay, we're going over this for about 2 minutes, it could just be something to where it's like, okay, the guys in New York have already taken a look at it, and it's more of a relay decision to where it's like, okay, this decision has been relayed. We look at it. Okay, it's good. Boom, we make the call to where it kind of like, yet again, streamlines the last 2 minutes, because one of the things I will say is a negative about the NBA is like you get to those final, like that final minute, and it's like every call, it's like, all right, we're going to the monitors yet again, and it's going to be another 2 minute thing to determine what the call is. And then it's totally like what goes in with you. It's totally different than how it was called all season.
Yeah. Because I know, like, I think that is one of the things they really need to do is streamlining that process, because obviously it's still new. I think, this is the second season it's been implemented?
I think you may be right.
It's the second or first. It's one of the two.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know, for instance, one of the other thoughts I had was along with just kind of going over a lot of, like, the contact rules.
Mm-hmm.
I think as well is just kind of... I'm trying to figure out how to word this. But, like, this is never going to go away, is figuring out something with tampering.
Yeah.
Because, like, obviously, and I'm not trying to say, like, it happens all the time, because it probably does. It's just people will bash certain organizations for doing it more, because, like, I know the Lakers got in trouble because Magic Johnson was like, oh, everyone wants to play with LeBron, or some, whatever one comments were. But, like, I think it's a kind of figuring out, like, to properly define what tampering is, because at times, you can't fucking stop people from talking to each other. Like, you have friends across the league.
See, to me, and this might be an unpopular opinion, Saopy, I almost look at it and I go, pick what you want. If you want a players' league where these players can go team up with each other and play wherever they want, then don't get mad when they tamper, because, like, you're feeding into it by having a players' league. And like, for example, Pat Riley got fined for making the comment of like, oh, if LeBron ever wants to come back to Miami, I'll leave the key under the house mat for him. to where it's like, all right, you can fine him for that, but it doesn't change that the conversation happened or what said was said. It's not like, well, we fined him and everyone was neuralized and nobody remembers what was actually said. Like, to me, I think it's like, you live in a players' league. This is the league you wanted. You're going to have to deal with tampering. You're going to have to deal with players talking. You're going to have to deal with owners and GMs trying to sway players to come to their team. If you don't want that, then go to what the NBA or go to what the NFL has, where the teams and the ownerships have more of the power.
Yeah, and just kind of like a random thought I had as well, where I was kind of thinking about this, and I know obviously this may not be something that the NBA itself does.
Yeah.
But almost seeing if you can make a rule to try to make smaller markets more appealing to players. And I'm not even trying to do like a
Memphis,
whole
like Memphis or Orlando. It's easy, win, which ain't gonna happen in some cases.
Yeah, but like for instance, you have it of where, like, and obviously, like when I say like big markets, I'm just gonna throw out like the big three of like New York, LA, and I'll just say Chicago. But like some people could probably argue like Boston's bigger or something. But like with those ones, where obviously Chicago's kind of a different story than the bigger two.
Yeah.
But of where like you kind of like you see the players just kind of sitting and being like, of where almost like bigger markets just have an easier time of getting stars to go there. Like obviously I know it's not like, oh, everyone has different cap spaces. Like it's not like how it is in like soccer or football, of how it's like, oh hey, everyone has their own set of money they can have. It's just how much the owner wants to throw out. Like obviously with the NBA
kind of like
having
baseball
a cap space
as well, where there's no cap space.
Yeah. I almost think, and obviously this could be a fucking wild crackpot thought. All markets have higher cap space.
No, I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
They should do something like that.
You want to know how you help out small, like here's yet again the thing. You want to know how you help out smaller markets?
You don't have the media shit on them all the time.
You don't have the media shit on them all the time, and you shut down player movement. Like, the thing is, this is the NBA's dilemma of it's all about player movement. Where are players going to want to play? That's the thing where I'm not going on, like, I've never agreed with Dave when he's been on the rant of they pick, like, LA because it's warm, because, like, Katie and Kyrie picked Brooklyn, and Brooklyn gets cold as shit through half of the year. Mainly the years where or the time where you're working through the year. I think it more goes off of, okay, NBA players, especially because really the superstars is where this kind of matches up with, is what's going to help my brand. Like, you look at LeBron, where LeBron went to Miami because he wanted to win a championship. D Wade was already down there. I know there was the story of like, oh, they thought about the Bulls and Bulls didn't have the cap space. Yet again, the reason why they may have even been looking at the Bulls is because of D Wade. D Wade would have been like, hey, Chicago's a good market. I'm from Chicago. We can all play here. It's a good team. Didn't have the room for all three of them. So they just went back to Miami, where it's like Miami's not a bad market, but D Wade also had that connection. LeBron goes back to Cleveland. Yes, it's a small market, and I know Jake's like, oh, but he went back to Cleveland. He went back to Cleveland. That was all personal based. If LeBron would have won a championship prior to the Miami move, he wouldn't have gone back to Cleveland. The only reason he went back to Cleveland was because he felt bad about leaving them and wanted to make it right by winning them a championship. Then it comes down to the move that really comes into this conversation is, why did LeBron go to LA? LeBron's thinking about post-LeBron, post-career. My brand, what city is going to help my brand the most? Notice how, and yet again, I will throw this out. Notice how LeBron didn't do Space Jam when he was in Cleveland or Miami. He did Space Jam when he was in LA. Makes it easy to do that stuff. Like, you're thinking about, okay, my life after basketball. Now LeBron has all the out of basketball stuff, and it's like, okay, and yet again, KD had to make the same decision. Now his was New York or Brooklyn. There's kind of a choice there, but like, okay, which market is going to help my brand? There's no player in the NBA, superstar-wise, like, let's say Luka, if he leaves Dallas, because we talked about that yesterday on the show, Luka's not going to go, oh man, I want to go to Memphis because Memphis is going to help my brand. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the thing of like, does that then force you to go into what you said of like, okay, we got to give small market teams more resources that the big teams don't to make it competitive? Or you just kill player movement, which I'm not on either side, but I think it's like, that's the decision. If you don't like small markets getting blasted, A, don't let the media blast them. And two, go to what the NFL's doing, because NFL has small market teams that are thriving.
Yeah, and I think it's just as well of, I think a lot of it does come down to like, obviously this isn't even something the NBA can control. They have to talk to like the fucking sports media.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, listen, don't bash Jokic for being a bad MVP because he's on the Nuggets.
He's a bad MVP, but it ain't because he's on the Nuggets.
Okay, let's not fucking start this argument again.
Not my MVP, that's all I'm saying.
I mean, hey, I'm just saying my MVP was about to put Booker in the fucking dirt, so... Yeah. Like, I just think it's almost that's just something outside of the NBA's control. Like, they need to talk to, like, places like ESPN and tell them, like, hey, listen, we don't give a shit what your ratings are. Yeah. You should be happy we allow you to cover us.
Ooh, and basically tell them. That's very Adolf Silvery. That kind of toes a line there.
Well, no, but see, this is the wonderful thing, though. ESPN's going to instantly fucking be like, oh, yes, daddy. If fucking Adolf Silver for even a second just threatens to, like, hey, you may not be able to cover us anymore. We may just have CBS only cover us.
See, but yet again, the little thing I'm going to throw in there is there is a TV contract in there. And I mean, hey, it would just have
to... Once that contract's done?
Yeah, but I think it's like 5 years. I think they make like 5-year deals. So it's like...
I mean, hey, once that 5 years is done, you tell them, like, hey, motherfucker, we hear you bash this team once at all. Contract voided.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the way contracts work is you can't just add things to a contract.
I know. I'm talking about once you get to the end of the 5 years.
Oh, okay.
You add that stipulation of like, hey, we don't give a shit what your ratings are.
Okay.
You don't bash a player because he's not in a big team.
Mm-hmm.
The fact of you could make Denver a big fucking market. Don't shit talk them.
So here's one of the problems though that runs into a show like First Take. They then run into the problem of like, okay, I'm not saying it's not on the side of like, I just want to bash the small market. What if there's a situation that comes on where Stephen A has an opinion bashing X player? Oh, wait, I can't say this opinion because he happens to play for a small market and ESPN doesn't want to lose their TV deal.
Well, that's not the point I'm making.
No. I know that's not the point you're making, but like, that's kind of the sticky situation that comes into.
I don't think it would be that stringent because my problem I have is when Nick Wright said Jokic would be a bad MVP, then later says the reason he said that is because he's in Denver.
Well, first off, that's Nick Wright. Nick Wright's an idiot. I'll be honest.
But once again, he's still a representative.
Yeah, I know. I can't stand.
I'm just talking
Nick
about
Wright.
Giving more coverage to small teams is what I want.
Yeah.
Of like, for instance, like you'll have average fans who like they hear someone like Nick Wright who's on TV, their brains are like, oh, Nick Wright equals smart, he on TV. Of where they'll hear Nick Wright say, oh, Jokic is the worst MVP in the last 35 years. They'll be like, why the fuck should I watch Denver?
So, Saopy, we got live news here on the show. You ready for this?
Oh, yeah?
It's
the All-NBA teams.
The All-NBA teams. Do you want to hear them?
Sure.
Okay. The first team, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Nikola Jokic, Steph Curry, Luka Doncic, Kawhi Leonard.
I don't hate it.
The second team, Damian Lillard, Joel Hans Embiid, Chris Paul, Julius Randle, and LeBron James.
All right, maybe if we push Randle out of the second team, maybe.
Third team is Rudy Gofraud, Jimmy Butler, Paul George, Bradley Beal, and Kyrie Irving. Kevin Durant and James Harden did not make an All NBA team.
Yeah, that's the fucking garbage part. I think the first player I'd get rid of in a fucking heartbeat is Julius Randle. I think he gets
most improved player of the year, my guy.
Okay, and apparently the ultimate fraud who won defensive player of the year is on the third team. Oh
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really hate the first team. I'd maybe bump Giannis down to the second and put Harden in there.
Because I'm trying to think from big market. Also, you've got, so this is just from playoff teams. So Ben Simmons and Toby didn't make a team. KD and Harden didn't make a team. Other notables, Jason Tatum's not on a team. Pretty much that's the only from the East that I would say. Donovan Mitchell got snubbed. Yeah, you know what? Besides that, like Donovan Mitchell's the only name in the West that I was like, okay, maybe you look at him, but like, I don't know. Like the biggest ones to me is like how KD and or Harden did not, but Kyrie snuck into a third team. Yeah, not saying that Kyrie did not deserve it, but Harden and KD deserve to be on a first or a second or a third NBA team.
Yeah, I would probably say move Randall completely out, put either KD or Harden in the second team, and then move Jimmy Butler out of the third team.
I was going to say, the fact Jimmy Butler made an All-NBA team is shocking.
Yeah, I think it's more or less just the fact of, like, I don't hate Bradley Beal being there, because Bradley Beal was a fucking absolute beast this year. Paul George being there, I'm fine with. It is what it is. Like, obviously, Luka, like, I think that first team is basically fine.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are going to have a problem with the fact that Embiid also didn't make it, a.k.a. Jake, because he's already talked about in the NBA chat.
Well, here's the thing, though. Embiid now...
They count them both as forwards. That's the main reason he's going to make that argument.
No, not that. It's the tweet that Bobby Marks just said. Now that Embiid has even just made an All-NBA team, he is now Supermax eligible. The Sixers and Embiid are now allowed to negotiate an extension of 4 years and projected $191 million that would begin in 2023-2024 and would run all the way through 2027.
Yeah, so, I mean, hey, if you want to pay a guy who has fucked up knees a Supermax, go ahead.
I'm just saying now, like, it's interesting that now he is eligible for it, but Soapy...
I'm mostly just throwing it in there because I saw Jake put in the NBA chat how much money he'd make in that final year. He'd make $52.8 million.
Yeah, for those of you who do not
sign me up for that shit.
For those of you who do not have the tweet in front of you, the breakdown is 23-24 is $42.5 million. 24-25 is $46 million. 25-26 is $49.5 million. And then 26-27 is the 52.8, almost $53 million he would be making in that last year. Soapy, the last thing we're going to talk about today, and this is going to be a long show because we're going to have to do our due diligence and give it time because it is the namesake. Here, I'll ask you, because the show's hitting an hour, do we go into this last topic, push it to a different date, and basically just rename the title on YouTube, or do we go ahead and talk about the Combine?
That's a tough one. Obviously, it's the namesake, but... At the same time, it is almost an hour.
The namesake can always change. Here's the thing, though. I don't want to do this any, because obviously you don't want to spend. We spent way more on rules than we thought we did. So,
oh yeah, definitely.
What we are gonna do is we're gonna kick the can a little bit. So for tomorrow or Thursday, hell, even maybe next week on the show, we will talk Combine. I just want to do it its due diligence. I don't want someone coming in, clicking on the video, and then being like they only spent 15 minutes on it. What the fuck? They spent most of the time on rules. So we will change. I'll change the title after it goes up. We'll go more for the rules. We're going to pull an audible on the show. Sorry for you guys. We'll talk about the Combine later. Plus, it gives us, especially for me, gives me a little bit more time to have some just pure reaction opinions. I can actually think about things and actually look through the list, because this would be my first time looking at the list of who's going to be at the Combine. But then that is going to do it for us. Thank you guys for checking out the show for today. Remember, check out the MVP Discord link down below if you want to get in on all the great conversations happening with the amazing community that we have there. If you want to support us, patreon.com/MVPvids, or you can become a channel member today. Gold and Platinum channel members, really promoting this, can get Saopy's mock draft right now, will not have to wait until Friday, and can get my Io DeSumo scouting video tonight. Do not have to wait until next Tuesday to get that. Go ahead and check that out down below. Also, hit that sub button, hit that like button, hit that notification button, comment, let us know what you think down below. Thank you guys for everyone who watched this video, everyone who was in YouTube chat today. We appreciate you guys. Tomorrow on the show will be Jake and Saopy. They'll be talking about more NBA. We got NBA, and then NFL with Jake and I on Friday. So Saopy and Jake will be back tomorrow. We'll actually be back the next 2 days talking NBA with you guys. Thank you for being a great audience like you always are. And as always, have a good day, everybody.